Okay, you're all set.
Okay, I'll go ahead and share my screen, Megan, and you can kick us off. There you go.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're really glad to have you here with us today. My name is Megan Freewald. I'm the manager of instructional technology and virtual education support at Alfred University, where our statutory unit is the New York State College of Ceramics. Keith?
Yeah, and I'm Keith Landa. I wear a bunch of hats. I'm director of our Teaching Learning Technology Center here at Purchase College. I'm on leave right now as president of University Faculty Senate, which puts me on the Fact2 Council, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So, without any further ado, come on. Oops, Megan.
All right, we have a little agenda here for you, just so you can see an overview of what we'll be discussing today. Keith is going to give us an overview of the AI task group that this workshop series came out of, because it will provide some context for a number of the topics we will be discussing today. And then we'll talk briefly about why is it a good idea to include a syllabus statement about AI. We'll share a template with you that you can use to create your own. And we'll also share some of the specific resources from the AI guide that came out last fall that address syllabus statements. We'll discuss the different levels of AI usage that professors may expect the students to adhere to in their classes. We'll share some examples. We'll share some considerations and themes that we noticed as we were looking at a number of different examples to share with you. We'll discuss citations briefly, and then hopefully we will have time at the end for some discussion and sharing before we wrap things up.
Great. So a little bit of background around the task group. This is one of the task groups from the Fact2 organization, which is the Faculty Advisory Council on Teaching with Technology. We'll obviously share the slides around, and we will pop links into the chat periodically. Fact2 is basically an advisory group to the system provost, providing feedback on advances in technology, how that relates to teaching and learning. And one of the things that Fact2 does is to run a variety of task groups. There have been task groups in the past on e-portfolio use, on virtual reality, on authentic assessment, and so forth. This task group for on AI actually started off summer 2023 was when the task group was put together. And normally these Fact2 task groups will spend a year looking at some topic, developing resources, oftentimes resulting in a presentation at the Conference on Instruction and Technology or some symposia. With the fact that AI was such a hot topic, and that the large language models like ChatGPT had really hit the big time the previous fall in November 2022, this task group was tasked with creating a guide that would be useful to faculty coming back to campus in fall 2023. So like most task groups, we hit the ground running, spent a lot of time last summer developing this version 1.0 guide, which we will look at a couple of slides down the road. And that was released to campuses not quite as early as we wanted at the beginning of fall semester, but midway through fall semester, and hopefully all of your campuses, got notices out to faculty about it. We're now working on our second phase of work, We have one subcommittee that is updating this guide that was released last fall. There'll be a new version of the guide coming out. Another group working on the developing a website for AI in teaching and learning that will be hopefully useful to faculty and instructional support staff across our campuses. There's a group working on planning a symposium that will be held in association with the Conference on Instruction and Technology, which is another thing that the FACT2 sponsors. That will be May 21st. We'll have more information about that later. But also we have the subcommittee that Megan and I are co-chairing on faculty development, and our primary output this spring is this webinar series. This is the third of 5 sessions in the webinar series. So we've had a couple of very well attended, engaged sessions. Hopefully today's session will be just as engaging. And we'll have 2 more sessions after this that we'll talk about later. Megan.
All right. Why is it important to share an AI syllabus statement? Well, you can think of it the same way you would think of any other information that you would include in a syllabus. It's really important to communicate any expectations you have regarding AI so the students know what their responsibilities are and what you are expecting them to produce or provide or not produce or not provide based on the level of expected use and participation. And we do have a question that we would like to ask. So Keith, if you would bring that up. We are curious whether or not you already have an AI statement in your syllabus, and you can just put a simple yes or no in the chat just so we can kind of get sort of a snapshot. Okay, and they are coming in. Great, thank you. Yeah, so you can just be thinking about the items that you already include in your syllabus and think about your, how you're feeling about AI and whether you might allow it or disallow it. And just be thinking about how you might communicate that with your students.
So I see a lot of no's and some yeses. So those of you who have already put a syllabus statement in, certainly as we go through, we can talk about your experience in the chat and maybe volunteer later on how you went about looking at developing your syllabus statement. Megan, I think this is your slide as well.
Yep. So we have a template that we have put together, and we included a number of elements and considerations that we sort of saw as common items and themes in many of the examples that we encountered. And I will put that in the chat in just a moment. There's a QR code here as well. It will prompt you to save a copy, but you can customize this. If there's anything in here that you don't want to use and is not applicable to you, please feel free to remove it. If there's something that you think really needs to be in there, please add it. This is entirely for your use, for you to customize for your needs. And I will also note that if you would like to work on this while you're listening today during the presentation, you are not going to hurt our feelings. Please feel free to do that. And I will also just stick that in the chat in just a moment.
Great. So much of the conversation today will be Megan going through some different examples of syllabus statements to provide some ideas for you to consider. Before we get to that, though, I do want to provide a little bit more framework and dive into this version 1.0 guide that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and talk about how how we were thinking about the idea of syllabus statements when we were working on the guide last summer. So actually, let me go back here. we have taken this version 1 of the guide that was distributed out as a PDF to campuses last fall. It's been put up into the SUNY Pressbooks site as a Pressbook volume. This is openly licensed. It's CC BY non-commercial license, so feel free to download the material here. You can download it in a couple of different formats. You can repurpose the content from this guide in whatever way makes sense for supporting your use of AI in teaching and learning, but also your campus's use. And if we look at the contents of the book, just a brief overview of what we distributed to campuses last fall. A little bit talking about an overview of AI, some of the pros and cons, ethical uses, and so forth. I was involved in a group that was really focused on this guide to pedagogical uses of AI, and we'll get to this setting expectations in your classes in just a minute, because that will relate directly to what we're talking about today. And then a few chapters on or sections on thinking about different AI tools. Now, I will say the landscape for AI tools is rapidly developing, and it's hard to keep up. But there are some general principles here in how you might think about different AI tools. But more germane for our purposes today, we realized when we were putting out the guide that it was very important, as Megan was describing, to set expectations for use of AI or not use of AI in your classes. And so as part of this first version of the guide, we did begin to assemble some sites that had decent examples of syllabus statements at the time. Won't go through a lot of these examples because Megan's pulled out some specific ones that she wants to talk about. I do want to highlight, we identified this page at University of Alberta's Center for Teaching and Learning was early out of the box with some guidelines to their faculty. And the content on this page reinforces a lot of the concepts we're talking about today in terms of how you might go about developing statements with your students, the importance of transparency, what some of the items that you might consider. But what I liked about this site was very early on, it provided a range of the different levels of syllabus statements that one might imagine. Everything from, no, we're not going to use AI at all, to we're gonna jump all in with both feet. We're going to incorporate appropriate use of AI tools into multiple aspects of how we run the course and everything in between. So if you're looking for some examples beyond what we talk about in this webinar today, you might want to come here. I just want to pull up a couple of other resources. I'm pulling up this page at Colorado State University, which is, again, another of these advice to faculty, because I really want to focus on this third example of what was based off of an actual syllabus statement that the person who put this page together was. And the statement was, from this point forward, I will assume that all written work has been co-authored or entirely written by ChatGPT. I will grade such writing as I normally would, and your grade will be a reflection of your ability to harness these new technologies as you prepare for your future in a workforce that will increasingly require your proficiency in AI-assisted work. And when I read this, I thought, wow, that's either a faculty member who's very forward-looking or a faculty member who is just thrown in the towel. And so hopefully the syllabus statements that you will develop will be a little bit more nuanced than that. And then the last thing before I turn it over to Megan is we have a link in the guide here to a crowdsourced collection of AI syllabus statements. Lance Eaton, an instructional designer, early on in this conversation said, hey, if you're developing a syllabus statement, here's a form where you can submit it and I will just collect all these together. So here is a huge list of different syllabus statements. You can see the course and the college where the syllabus statement came from, what the policy is. We won't go through all of these. I will just mention that at this point, there are 81 pages of these. So if you are stuck and you are looking for examples, you can come here. Now, your mileage may vary. These are all just crowdsourced syllabus statements. And so many of them are not syllabus statements that I would actually recommend, but I just want to make you aware of the availability of this. And with that, before we go to Megan, looking at all these example syllabus statements, you can and when Megan and I were thinking about putting this webinar together, we basically imagined 3 different kinds of use cases where clearly there are going to be a lot of faculty who are not going to want students to use AI tools in their course, and so we want to provide support for faculty who are not wanting to use AI tools. There are faculty, as I've said, who are going to actually require AI tools, and there are faculty who are going to be somewhere in between, that use of AI tools is allowed with some guidelines. Now, before we get to looking at some of those examples, Jen, if you could throw up the poll at this point, we would just want to get a sense of where people stand on this who are in the webinar. So everything from no use permitted, some use required, and I also threw in an option. Well, maybe it depends on the course. I might have different levels of comfort with AI tools depending on the course. And a last item, I don't know yet. So you should see the poll on your screen. Please go ahead and click an answer. And Jen, how are we doing with answers coming in?
Looks like we've got over half of our participants have answered so far. We're still going.
Okay. So in a minute, we'll look at the distribution, but in the meantime, please add to the chat. If you're one of the faculty who say, I don't want students using AI in my course, just throw a couple of thoughts into the chat about, why, what's your understanding for that? Same thing with, whether if you're expecting AI use or if you are going to allow AI use. It'll be interesting to see, how faculty are thinking about these different options as we go forward. Okay, so I see a no there. So, Jen, we don't want to belabor the time here. Let's just go ahead and show the results. So, well, good. We have some. It depends on the course, about a quarter of us. I'd be very interested for those of you who said it depends on the course, what criteria you're using to decide, well, in some courses, it's going to be allowed, in other courses, it's not. About half of us are some use allowed with specific guidelines, about 10% no use, and so forth. So that's a good distribution. With that, we'll turn it over to Megan to actually go through some examples of different types of syllabus statements reflecting those different levels.
Right. And we do have some examples from different levels. And in order to share these, we kind of went back and forth on how to share them. And I did try my best to squish these onto their own slides. And as the expected usage increases, so does the length. So please bear with me because I am going to read these, and I normally would never ever read off of a slide like this, but I understand that some people may have trouble reading the text because as we get further into a couple more of these statements, the text is going to get smaller. Plus, some people do process better when they hear something rather than from reading it. So this is an example from Jessamine Newhouse at Plattsburgh, and this is an example that discourages use, and this is also available in the guide as well, but we also wanted to share it with you today. So here we go. One of my favorite parts about teaching is helping students build their writing skills. Nobody will ever be more interested in your writing than I am. Writing clearly and effectively is necessary for your academic and professional success, but it isn't easy to do. However, in over 20 years of teaching, I've found that every single student with effort, practice, feedback, and support can improve their writing. While AI tools can generate written statements and even whole assignments, I'm here as an expert writer to help you develop the ability to express your own unique and individual ideas in written form. That's what your tuition dollars are paying for. As a part of our co-created class values statement, I hope we will decide together to limit the use of ChatGPT and other AI in this class so everyone in our learning community will have the maximum opportunity to develop their writing voice. So please feel free to put any observations in the chat as we look at any of these examples. Okay, I'll leave this one up for just another second, and then we will look at another example. Oh, here's something in the chat. I like how personal and encouraging it is. Yes, that struck me as well. That even though this is discouraging the students from using it, it's also explaining why and saying, you can do this, I will support you, you can learn how to be an effective writer. Okay, so we're going to move on. Keith, would you take us to the next example? And this is sort of that sort of mid-level. So this is an example from Sam Sharma at Stony Brook. He presented last week on potential and pitfalls, and he allowed us to share this with you today. And this is an example that allows AI use, doesn't necessarily require it, but the students are required to meet certain guidelines. So here we go with this one. Representing work generated by artificial intelligence as one's own work is academically dishonest. This class uses AI tools to reinforce your learning using this approach. 1, learn to use AI tools skillfully as benefit increases with user skills. 2, cross-check AI tools' responses, even factual, against authentic sources, evaluating them carefully. 3, cite all instances of words and ideas borrowed from AI tools using the MLA style. For purposes beyond the cited text and ideas, indicate what AI tools you used and how in an endnote. 5, don't use AI tools when not appropriate, such as for logical or ethical reasons. So you can see here we have more of an instructive element, letting the students know what they need to be careful of and also what they need to do in addition to the assignment as they use AI for part of that assignment. And you'll see that this will also increase as we look at our next couple of examples where AI is more heavily expected or required. So Keith, would you get us to our next example? Thank you. Okay, so this example is from Pam Harland at Plymouth State University, and we actually found this example in that large crowdsourced document. So this is there along with a number of others. And in this course, this instructor is allowing the students to use AI with little restriction. You'll see that there are some guidelines here as well. But you'll see that there's an instructive element here that is much more specific for this example and the next one that we'll share. So here we go with this one. Within this course, you are welcome to use generative artificial intelligence, AI models, ChatGPT, DALL-E, GitHub Copilot, and anything after with acknowledgement. However, you should note that all large language models have a tendency to make up incorrect facts and fake citations. They may perpetuate biases, and image generation models can occasionally come up with offensive products. You will be responsible for any inaccurate, biased, offensive, or otherwise unethical content you submit, regardless of whether it originally comes from you or an AI model. If you use an AI model, its contribution must be cited and discussed. What was your prompt? Did you revise the AI model's original output for your submission? Did you ask follow-up questions? What did you learn? Having said all these disclaimers, the use of AI models is encouraged as it may make it possible for you to submit assignments and your work in the field with higher quality and in less time. So again, if you have any observations about this example, please feel free to share them in the chat. Yes, citations are something that are required in a number of the examples that we encountered. One element I just want to point out in this example that we didn't see very frequently, yes, and Catherine just pointed it out in the chat, is the what did you learn question. And I think that that is really helpful to encourage the students to think about the process and what they thought of the overall process, what they got out of it, and what they learned from their experience. Okay, so we'll move on to another example. And this one is a little bit different. And you can see how much longer this one is because the text just got really tiny. But this example is for a course where AI use is required. So again, like I mentioned earlier, as the use expectation increases, so does typically the length of the statement as well as the instructive element included in the statement. So here we go. I expect you to use AI, ChatGPT, DALL-E 2 in this class. In fact, some assignments will require it. Learning to use AI as an emerging skill, and I will provide basic tutorials about how to leverage it for our work. However, be aware of the limits of these software systems. AI is vulnerable to discrimination because it can inadvertently or intentionally perpetuate existing biases present in the data it is trained on. For example, if an AI system is trained on data that contains a bias against a certain group of people, the system may make decisions that are unfair or discriminatory toward that group. There are several reasons why AI systems can perpetuate discrimination. Bias in the training data. If the training data contains biases, the AI system may learn and replicate those biases in its decision-making. Lack of diversity in the training data. If the training data does not include a diverse range of examples, the AI system may not perform well on diverse inputs, which may lead to discrimination. Lack of transparency. Some AI systems can be difficult to understand and interpret, making it challenging to detect and correct for biases. Lack of accountability. Without proper oversight and accountability, it can be difficult to identify and address discrimination in AI systems. It is important to keep in mind that these biases can be unconscious, unintended, and hard to detect, but they can have serious consequences if they are not addressed. AI can be a valuable tool for augmenting human decision-making and critical thinking, but it is not a replacement. AI is a tool, just like a pencil or a computer. However, unlike most tools, you need to acknowledge using it. Pay close attention to whatever information you use in your own work that is produced from AI and explain how and what you used at the end of assignments. My recommendation is to screenshot and save everything. What prompts you used, what answers were produced, where, why, and how. This is new territory, but basic attribution rules still apply. Cite everything. Otherwise, you are likely violating academic integrity policies. If you provide minimum effort prompts, you will get low quality results. You need to refine your prompts to get better outcomes. This will take time and practice. Don't trust anything the system says. Assume it is wrong unless you already know the answer and can verify with trusted sources. It works best for topics you deeply understand. Use your best judgment to determine if, where, when to use these tools. They don't always make products easier and or better. Large language models and chatbots are look-back machines. They don't advance knowledge yet. ChatGPT 3 uses data from 2021 and earlier. A lot has changed since 2021. And this example was also taken from that crowdsourced document as well. Example 4 seems extreme in the chat. Well, it's very detailed. It's very detailed, and I think there is a spectrum of what information you deem necessary to include in a syllabus statement. And I think there are some things that may be addressed separately in class. But again, we do have a very heavy instructive element in this example. Is there any, I'm wondering if anyone is surprised by anything that you've seen in this example or in any of the other examples? Oh, and in the chat, Maureen says it would be a lecture as well as included in the syllabus. Yeah, I agree. You could split some of the content out and include it in individual and introductory assignments. Yes. Not surprised, but wonder how it is incorporated in class. Yeah, great question.
Yeah, one comment I would add, Megan, around these examples where AI tools are expected. I think I saw that more frequently in specialized upper level classes. For example, if we're doing 3D design, as a junior level art and design class, there's probably going to be AI tools that are going to be actually part of the curriculum. And so there, in my mind, two different flavors of required use. One where the tool is the focus of the class, and others where it's not the focus of the class, but the faculty member wants to really encourage use of a variety of AI tools to support a more generalized course.
And I'm seeing some comments in the chat about training students to use these tools. I believe Jeffrey made that comment as well. And in this statement, they do mention that there would be some training available like during class. But yeah, I think that there is a responsibility to include that. Okay, I think we can move on.
So, okay. So I'm going to cover a couple of things on the next couple of slides. One is I'm going to be back in the classroom this summer after being out for a number of years. And so I will need to develop my own AI statement for my course. My course is Search for Life in the Universe. It's a non-majors natural sciences gen ed course. It's basic astrobiology course. And so I thought, well, I'm doing this workshop. I need to do a syllabus statement on AI. Let me go to a couple of my favorite platforms and see what I can come up with. So you escape out of the presentation for a minute. I mostly use Claude myself, but I've also been starting to play around with Gemini. There is, of course, Copilot, there's Bard, there's a variety of other generalized large language models. But here's the prompt I threw in to Gemini, and then I copied the prompt over into Claude. And so I said, writing as a college professor teaching a class on astrobiology to non-major freshmen, list a syllabus statement explaining why student use of AI tools will not be allowed for class assignments. So this would be a kind of a level 1, case 1 kind of syllabus statement. This course is designed to develop your critical thinking and research skills in this exciting field. To achieve these goals, AI will not be used basically. And here's why. You need to learn through exploration. The summaries may not foster a deep understanding of the subject. You need to demonstrate critical thinking and research skills. And also bringing up the academic integrity argument that it's AI generated content, certainly unattributed AI generated content is a form of plagiarism. And therefore, if you've got questions about appropriate research methods or need help finding reliable sources, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm here to support your learning journey, not replace it with AI shortcuts. So that's one. I copied the same prompt into Claude and got this, use of AI language models and other AI writing tools. The use of AI language models such as ChatGPT, Claude, etc., Claude referring to itself here, and other AI writing tools is strictly prohibited in all course assignments and activities. I like this next part. Astrobiology is a complex interdisciplinary field that requires understanding and synthesizing knowledge from multiple domains, including biology, chemistry, astronomy, planetary science, and others. Relying on AI tools to generate written work undermines the learning objectives. Now, neither one of these is necessarily what I would use for a level 1 AI statement, but again, it provides a starting point. Own critical thinking, gain practice articulating scientific concepts in own words. And this one did actually point up again that outputs of AI models can be inconsistent. And for these reasons, work found to be generated using AI writing tools will receive no credit, and so forth. So those are a couple of examples of kind of level 1 syllabus statements. I thought it might be a little bit hypocritical for me to have a syllabus statement outlining the use of AI tools by my students when I'm using an AI tool to generate the statement. And it's not really what I'm more in that second category. So I went back to Gemini and said, write a different syllabus statement for the class above describing that use of AI tools for class assignments is allowed, but must be thoroughly documented. And this course dives into the fascinating world of astrobiology and will explore the potential for life beyond the Earth in recognition of the evolving landscape of research. The use of AI-powered tools for assignments is permitted but with some key requirements. So transparency. At the end of the day, you need to show your work and that original contributions are going to be, prioritized. Same thing in Claude. I liked this here. I mean, on the one, in the first case, Claude, argues that astrobiology is a complex interdisciplinary field, and relying on AI tools can undermine the learning objectives. But on the other hand, it's very happy to argue that astrobiology spans many different scientific disciplines, and AI can potentially be leveraged as one tool to aid in research, gathering relevant information, and articulate ideas more fluidly. Not a full replacement. You still need to show your original work. You must meticulously document and so forth. So I'm, myself, I'm going to be somewhere in the middle here. I'm going to maybe start with what Gemini and Claude have given me, and I'll use those to develop my AI statements. But as part of this, it's clear that it's clear to me that whatever level of AI use you are comfortable with for your course, student documentation and reflection on AI use is going to be increasingly important as we go forward. So in the kind of first level case where no AI use is permitted, I've seen examples where the syllabus said that, as part of submitting work, students will basically be required to tackle on the kind of honor code statement, I have not used AI. AI tools have not been used in the production of this work. So case number 1 and case number 3, I think, are pretty straightforward in terms of student documentation and reflection. In the one case, you may want to require students to provide an attestation that they've not used AI tools as part of submitting coursework. In the third case, where AI use is required, oftentimes, faculty members are going to be requiring students use specific tools to meet specific learning outcomes, and therefore what tools were used and why is kind of baked into the assignments themselves. It's this intermediate case where I think we have the most interesting play about how we think about requiring our students to document their use of AI and reflect on their usage. So, and we've seen some of these in the examples that we've come across already. What tools did you use? Why? For which parts of the assignments? How did you validate the results? How did AI use impact what you got out of the assignment? I wanted to pull up one specific example that we got from a colleague of ours, Logan Rath. This is a syllabus statement it's a graduate level information science course. And so make this a little bit bigger. This is kind of that intermediate case. You can use AI tools, but you got to do these 2 things. You need to include a disclaimer at the start of your submission that states which tool is used for what purposes. And I like that he provides this kind of, I use Grammarly to assist with proofreading, or I needed help generating an outline for a section of my paper, so I went to ChatGPT and so forth. And again, the validate the output part. One thing that Logan has done, and again, this is for a graduate level information science, so this might be overkill for a number of our courses, but he's actually requiring the student, he's providing a form, a form letter basically, in Brightspace for all of his students to download and to submit along with every assignment, every discussion forum post, every other bit of original work. That kind of provides a framework. List the name of the tool that you used, how was it used, and again, this isn't a graduate level information science course, so keep that in mind, but he's requiring the students to actually put in your prompt here, what was your initial output, and then how did you work on that output? It's really trying to incorporate students, evaluating and thinking about their use of the tools into their reflection on the exercise. So Megan has put a link into the chat if you want to, have make a copy of this form to use or to modify for your use. You can click on that link in the chat to create a copy of the form. Even if you don't use this form in particular, I like the idea, the pieces that Logan is having his students think about as they are using AI. With that, Megan, I think you're taking the lead on this, although, maybe we can jump in together.
Sure. I mean, this is really just a summary of the different considerations and common elements that jumped out at us as we were looking through a lot of the examples that we shared earlier, as well as, Keith's examples that he created with the help of Claude, and also Logan's example as well. So I think as we think of these statements, I think it's important to, just think about how your intended level of use supports the learning objectives for that course. What assignments or tasks could be done with AI if that's appropriate, and what ethical elements do you want the students to be aware of? What fact checking are they responsible for? And what do you need them to provide in addition to producing the assignment? You're going to need other things. You're going to need citations, which we will talk about in a moment. You probably are going to need to know what their prompts were, what they received, what they did to that information to make it their own, and then everything that is also included in the form that Logan had shared with us as well. So Keith, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to
Yeah,
this.
I'll just add a couple of things. For example, in the example of my Search for Life in the Universe course, it is a non-majors gen ed natural sciences course. I'm not expecting any of my students in that course to go off and be astrobiologists, but it's going to be increasingly important for us to ensure that our students graduate with AI literacy, as well as a facility for using AI tools within their discipline. I'm on a number of SUNY AI task forces and so forth, and we're really thinking about education around AI in terms of a number of different buckets. There will be, of course, the very specialized graduate level programs in AI fields that help SUNY drive the field forward. But for the bulk of our students, we need to make sure that when they leave us, they have a general literacy about AI, its ethics, its role in society, its dangers, its values. And if we're turning out art historians, what are the AI tools that art historians need? If we're turning out nurses, if we're turning out engineers, what are the AI tools that will help them be successful in their careers? So that disciplinary focus around AI, the AI literacy, and so forth. So as you're thinking about your course, the learning outcomes and the assignments, where AI use would not be appropriate because it would defeat the learning goals for your course, and where it would be allowed or appropriate and help provide AI literacy and disciplinary training for our students. That's, I think, the balance that we all need to think about when we're thinking about how we're going to allow or not allow AI use in our courses. Megan?
Yeah, we saw citations as a required element in a number of our examples that we shared. And there is official guidance on citations available from MLA, APA, and the Chicago Style Manual. As I mentioned earlier, we did place these into the template document, so you can link to them from there. We are getting a little bit of short on time. Keith, I don't know if thank you, Keith, for sticking that in the chat. He just shared the MLA link, and we can put the others in quickly as well. But I don't think we need to spend too much time looking at the specific requirements. Those are available for you. Those are their Ask AI to cite your use of AI. That was in the chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did, I mean, this is Megan's slide, but I did pop over to take a look at the different style guides from the different ones. And I think it's worthwhile going to all of them because they provide a little bit different flavor about what you want to think about when you have your students provide citations on how they use AI. Should we go to the next slide then, Megan?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we are running out of time, but I mean, there's been a great interchange going on in the chat. We'll save the chat, see if there's anything that we need to get back to people on. A lot of the chat just blew up so quickly, I wasn't able to follow all of it. But maybe at this point, I'm going to stop sharing screen for a minute and see if I think we want to be open to, Megan, whether we can have some volunteers to talk about how they're approaching their syllabus statement.
Yeah, if anyone would like to turn their mic on and share, please do so.
Or ask other questions.
I have a question about how to put this in the chat before. The students that we've seen in our program, which is the midwifery program at Downstate, using AI in their writing, are usually students for whom English is a second language, and they're using it as an accessibility tool. And I wondered if you could address that, because it seems like, we don't want to be overly punitive and we don't want them to feel like they have to sneak around. But clearly, when they write an email, you can see that the English proficiency is very different from when they submit a paper. And it tends to be very flat and boilerplate.
Yeah, if you look at the guide that we put out last fall, this is kind of a tangential way of getting around to your question. One of the topics we had to deal with was, should we recommend AI detectors or not? And in general speaking, I'm not a big fan of the AI detectors because they tend to be have more false positives. We have a lot of false positives to begin with, but they tend to have a lot of false positives when you feed in non-native language examples to them. And B, there are legitimate accessibility uses of AI tools that can run afoul of these AI detectors. So I guess for the midwifery program, again, it goes back to what are your learning outcomes for the specific classes and for the specific activities in those classes. And you have to make the call. If I allow my students or non-native speakers to use these AI tools, is that better allowing them to be able to show me what they know and what they're accomplishing? Or is it getting in the way of their meeting the outcomes that you have for that? And so that's a course by course, activity by activity kind of analysis that we all have to make. It's one of the reasons why, A, there's never going to be a SUNY-wide policy on the use of AI tools. And B, that I don't even see that it's useful for campuses or departments to necessarily have a blanket rule on whether AI tools are used or not. I don't know if that gets around to any,
Yeah,
that
thanks.
helps your, yeah. So let me go back to finish our last couple of slides because we have a couple of important things we need to cover. There are some upcoming opportunities out of the FACT2 task group. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 additional webinar sessions coming up next week and the week after. One, AI as an assistant is going to be more focused on how we as faculty can encourage productive use of AI tools by our students, as as tutoring assists and things like that. And the last session is going to be focused on how we as faculty or instructional support staff can help faculty to use AI tools to build their courses. And then just the final point here, I mentioned this Fact2 AI Symposium. This is going to be an all-day session, both in person at University of Buffalo, starting the day before the official start of, well, before the regular sessions of the SUNY CIT conference starts, but it will also be available virtually. And so if you want to attend virtually, it's free. If you are coming into for CIT and you want to catch the afternoon sessions for the symposium, I believe that's free as well. If you're going to be at Buffalo the whole day and you want to catch the whole day of sessions, there is a nominal registration fee basically to cover the cost of lunch, which would be provided if you're there in person all day long. So let me pop this into the chat if Megan hasn't already done it.
I already did it, Keith.
Already did. Okay. So yeah, even if you're not going to be at CIT, if you can't make it out to Buffalo, the symposium is going to be available online. So we encourage people to sign up. And then here's our contact information with 3 minutes to spare. Any final comments, Megan?
No, I just want to thank everyone. I'm really curious to get a look at all of the wonderful comments that came up in the chat. Again, I couldn't keep up with them either, but I really look forward to reading those. And if anyone has any questions or would like to reach out with us, please do so.
Yes, I add my thanks as well. It's nice to see so many people interested in these sessions. And with that, Jen,